So in this episode, we'll be doing the joinery of the drawer box utilizing the domino. I like to set it up kind of in a production style. I'll go through and I'll just draw roughly where all my tenons are gonna go, because I'll have 2 in each joint. And then we'll talk about laying out the exact position of the tenons. So these are not exact, these are just for reference, so I have a visual cue as to where the mortises are gonna go. So for the joinery of the drawer box, I'm going to be utilizing the support foot that comes with the domino. It has these extra stops that will create a 20mm offset from any edge I reference off of. That'll be great for the top, that'll come down 20mm, but if I did it on the bottom, 20mm would be dead center of my dado. I don't want to do that. So what I'll do is I just created a gauge block that if I reference off the bottom edge, I can put a pencil line, then I can use the cursor on the domino fence to line that up with a loose mortise. So now I'll go ahead and mark for my bottom mortise. If this is your first time watching the build series and you want to know more about this rolling MFT cart, check out the link in the description below. So the tenon I'll be using for these mortises is a 5mm by 30. So I've got a 5mm cutter installed in the domino. I'm going to set the fence to 90 degrees. And I'll set the height of the domino fence to 20mm, and the plunge depth will be set at 15. And then I'll bounce back and forth between a tight mortise setting and the second loose mortise setting. So the top mortise, being the tight mortise, will be my alignment mortise. Now I can flip it around and do the same on the other side. When using the narrower pod, make sure you don't put it over the dado, otherwise you won't have full suction. For the short sides, I'll be doing the mortises vertically. So with those 4 done, I can go ahead and knock out the rest of the large drawer box pieces with all the mortises. Now that I have all the mortises in the large drawer box pieces, we can go ahead to a dry fit and then measure for the bottom panel. The dry fit process is fairly straightforward. I like to have my dominoes close by, a little hammer, and a piece of abrasive. Because I'll take my tenons and I'll just sand off the top little ledge on the edge there. So for dry fit purposes, they slide in a lot easier. With all the tenons in the end pieces, I can go ahead and start attaching the end pieces to the side pieces. Now I just need to measure for my bottom. I like doing it after everything is dry fit together. That way I have points to measure from. So once I measured my width and my depth, I went ahead and added the dimensions for my dado. Came up with 870mm wide by 334mm deep. Now, since I know everything was cut square, everything was cut the same dimension, I can cut the bottom panel for this and the same size for my other 3 drawers, and they'll all fit. Because I'll be cutting several pieces at the same exact width, I'll be using the parallel guides with the 3000 rail and our TSC 55K. If you have more questions about setting up the parallel guides, check out the link in the description. Now that I've got the parallel guide set to cut at 334mm, I just need to rip 3 pieces exactly the same width, and then I'm ready to cut them to length. Now from rip to width, you can go ahead and reset and set up the crosscut station with the MFT3 to cut them to length. If you have any questions about setting up the cross-cutting station with the MFT3, check out the link in the description. So now I know I need to cut these to 870mm long, but because I'm in a small shop, I don't want to be flipping the board back and forth trying to square up both ends. So what I'll do is go ahead and measure out 870. Now that I know that, I can slide this right where my saw is going to cut, but I'll make it about 1/4 inch longer. That way, once I cut this piece, then I can flip it over, cut it to exactly 870 millimeters, set my flag stop to that, then I know all the other pieces are going to be exactly that same length. So I can only get 2 drawer bottoms out of one 8-foot sheet of plywood, so we'll have to do this one more time. Process that I usually use for gluing up my drawer boxes is I'll glue up the tenons for one end, attach the 2 sides to that, slide in my bottom, and put on the other end. So now I can repeat the process with the remaining 3 large drawer boxes. With the last one pulled out of clamps, the next step in the process is to ease over some of these edges, do a light sanding, and then we can move on to putting on the drawer slides. If you want to continue with the build, click here, or check this out. Don't forget to subscribe. If you want to be notified when we upload new content, click that notification bell.